In 1302, Florence sentenced its greatest poet to be burned alive. They confiscated his property and banished him from the city forever. His enemies celebrated their victory, believing they had broken a man who dared challenge their power. They were wrong. That man went on to write a book that, 7 centuries later, is regarded as one of the greatest in human history. His name was Dante Alighieri. The exact date of his birth is unknown. Medieval Florence did not provide its citizens with precise records like modern civil registries. From indirect clues in his own works, Dante was a master at encoding autobiographical details. We can deduce he was born around May 1265. At birth, he was named Durante, likely after his maternal grandfather, but from childhood, everyone called him Dante. Official names stay in documents. Living nicknames stick forever and outlive centuries. His father, Alighiero di Bellincione, was a Florentine merchant and moneylender. By the time his son was born, he was already nearing 50, an important detail often overlooked. A child with an elderly father matures faster, sees death closer, and learns independence earlier than peers. Perhaps this early brush with reality gave Dante the maturity of outlook that sets him apart from other poets of his era. At 30, he wrote like someone who had lived several lives, because, in a sense, he had.
The Alighieri family was not wealthy, but not destitute either. They climbed the social ladder slowly and with dignity, as Florentine middle-class families knew how. Dante liked to hint at aristocratic roots. According to him, his great-great-grandfather, Cacciaguida, was a knight, a participant in the Second Crusade, personally knighted by Emperor Conrad III, and killed in battle for the faith. A beautiful family legend. Whether true or not is impossible to verify, but telling. Throughout his life, Dante would gravitate toward the aristocratic ideal, even though he was never wealthy or noble enough to fully embody it. This tension between ambition and reality drove him always. His mother Bella died when Dante was very young. We know almost nothing about her. No portrait, no memories, not even an exact death date. His father remarried La Pacialuffi, with whom he had a half-brother, Francesco. In the house on the street now named after the poet, in the San Pier Maggiore quarter, a boy grew up motherless, with an aging father, amid the bustle of a trading city. Florence in those days had 40–50,000 inhabitants, one of Europe's largest cities. To a contemporary, it was the New York of the Middle Ages, noisy, rich, dangerous, overflowing with ambition and money. Its famous cathedrals and palaces were just beginning to rise. The Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, Palazzo Vecchio, Santa Croce, all emerged before Dante's eyes in the late 13th century, funded by the gold of Florentine bankers and merchants whose trade network spanned Europe from England to Sicily. Construction on some lasted a century. The cathedral's famous dome came only in the 15th century under Brunelleschi. Dante saw the beginning. He did not live to see the completion, but his language and poetry became the foundation of the culture that later produced all that splendor. Note this detail. The Florentine gold florin was the international reserve currency of its time. By modern analogy, it was the dollar of medieval Europe. Kings borrowed from Florentines for wars, popes for politics, nobles for luxury. The city literally bathed in gold. And in this city grew a boy from a moderately prosperous family who would not be rich or noble, but would become richer than all others through the only wealth that cannot be taken or squandered: words.
But before poetry, politics must be understood, because politics would break Dante's life, and from that breaking would come the Divine Comedy. Italy, then, was not a country, but a geographical expression. Dozens of independent city-states, nominally under pope or emperor, but living their own lives in practice. The main fault line was the struggle between Guelphs, supporting the pope, and Ghibellines, supporting the emperor. Florence was Guelph, simple on the surface, but behind it lay money, family clans, personal enmities, and Europe-wide geopolitics. The conflict between papacy and empire was one of the longest and most destructive in Western history. It began in the late 11th century with the investiture controversy. Who appoints bishops, pope, or king? Formally settled by the 1122 Concordat of Worms, but only a truce. Popes and emperors fought for influence in Italy for 2 more centuries, drawing every city, family, and person into the fray. including Dante, his father, friends, and foes.
The roots go back to the 8th century, when Charlemagne conquered northern Italy and was crowned emperor by Pope Leo III on Christmas Day. Southern Italy remained outside the Carolingian Empire, which later split into western and eastern parts, future France and Germany. In the mid-10th century, German King Otto I reconquered the Italian kingdom and received the imperial crown from the Pope, founding the Holy Roman Empire, a political entity Voltaire wryly called neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. German emperors ruled from beyond the Alps, visiting Italy only for coronation, creating a power vacuum Italian cities filled as they pleased. By Dante's birth, Florentine Guelphs had just regained power after the 1260 defeat at Monteperti, when Ghibellines, aided by Sicilian King Manfred, crushed them. Dante's father was Guelph, but too minor to be among the thousands imprisoned or exiled after the loss. Another detail in the family portrait: always significant enough to be in the game, but not influential enough to be noticed in decisive moments, useful for survival, not for ambition.
Little survives about Dante's childhood and youth. He received traditional early education, Tuscan dialect as base, then Latin. Later he studied rhetoric under Brunetto Latini, a leading Florentine intellectual. Dante later calls him his teacher in the comedy. Here is the first paradox revealing much about the poet's character. Brunetto ends in hell's 7th circle among the sodomites, yet Dante speaks of him with warmth and genuine respect, even placing him in eternal torment. Moral law is implacable, but human feeling need not obey it. Dante understood this distinction like no one else. In later texts, Dante mentions vision problems troubling him in youth. 20th century Italian psychiatrist Cesare Lombroso suggested epilepsy, a disputed hypothesis, but the poet did link physical ailments to emotional shocks. For him, body and soul were inseparable long before psychosomatics became medical science.
Now the most interesting part. In 1274, when Dante was about 9, he first saw her, Beatrice Portinari, daughter of wealthy merchant banker Folco Portinari, a neighbor. As Dante describes in La Vita Nuova, he was struck, shaken to his core. This girl became the chief muse of his life, the woman to whom hundreds of poems were dedicated, the guiding star through paradise in the Divine Comedy. And yet, brace yourself, their real interaction amounted to literally a few street encounters. They lived nearby, but by 13th century norms, unmarried girls from respectable families rarely appeared in public. Dante saw Beatrice again only in 1283. She was 17, already married to Simone de' Bardi. She greeted him on the street, simply greeted him. That greeting threw Dante into such turmoil that he went home and wrote a sonnet. The key mystery of Dante as poet lies in this asymmetry, immense inner experience from a negligible external cause. Beatrice was not a woman to him, but a symbol, not a real person, but an embodiment of something higher, beauty, grace, providence itself. This does not mean he did not love her. It means he loved in her something greater than herself. And that is why her early death at 24 did not destroy the love, but made it eternal. Death frees the image from biography. Beatrice died and became immortal, but only because Dante willed it so.
Dante and Guido Cavalcanti belonged to the poetic movement Dante called dolce stil novo, the sweet new style, love lyric rooted in Provençal troubadour tradition. Its core idea, love for a noble lady ennobles and elevates the soul. The woman is not merely an object of desire, but nearly a spiritual being, a mediator between man and God. For its time, this was a revolution in both poetry and philosophy. By 1290, Dante was known in Florentine literary circles. Then came Beatrice's death on June 8th, cause unknown, perhaps complications after childbirth, perhaps illness. She was about 24. Dante was devastated, but from that ruin he built something new. La Vita Nuova appeared in 1294, a radically new genre, poems interspersed with prose commentary explaining the story of his love for Beatrice and analyzing his own verses, a book that is poetry, autobiography, literary criticism, and philosophical treatise at once. Before Dante, Italian literature had nothing like it. After him, everything changed. He finished the book promising to write of Beatrice what had never been written of any woman, a promise fulfilled 20 years later, only after his life shattered.
After Beatrice's death, Dante turned to Cicero and Boethius, especially the Consolation of Philosophy, written while awaiting execution. No coincidence. Boethius wrote of fortune, injustice, preserving inner dignity when the outer world collapses. Dante read him as someone unaware he would soon face a similar fate. He attended lectures in Florentine monasteries, seriously encountering Aristotle's ethics for the first time. For a medieval man, this was like us meeting Kant or Hegel, a coordinate system that reshapes all thought. His friend Cavalcanti was a convinced atheist who logically argued God's non-existence. Dante took his own path. He did not reject rationalism, but did not stop there. For him, reason was only the first level. Where Virgil ends, love and faith rise higher, levels reason cannot reach. This three-tiered architecture of knowledge became the comedy skeleton: reason through hell and purgatory, love through most of paradise, mystical contemplation to God himself.
Dante married conventionally for the era. His family's betrothal agreement with Gemma Donati, distant relative of Black Guelph leaders, was signed in February 1277, when he was not yet 12. Paradoxical at first glance, a white Guelph family allied with the Black clan. But in medieval Florence, political marriages were diplomacy tools to diffuse conflicts before street fights. Wedding, not romance, but contract. Not heart, but seal on parchment. That was the world Dante grew in, and precisely why his poetry of love sounded so countercultural to contemporaries. In real life, love was luxury. In his verses, the meaning of existence. The dowry was modest, 200 small florins, about 12 gold. Some biographers infer poverty in the Donati branch. Others counter that it reflected the Alighieri's modest status. Gemma's father was a knight. A knight need not give much for a daughter marrying someone without grand lineage. Medieval social arithmetic was ruthless and transparent. The actual wedding likely occurred around 1283. Some historians suggest 1293, after Beatrice's death. Boccaccio claimed Dante married only after losing his beloved forever. If true, the picture is psychologically vivid. He buried one woman in his heart before allowing another into his home. Two worlds, inner and outer, never intersected.
Have you ever wondered what it is like to be the wife of a man who never mentions you in his writings? Not once. Dante wrote thousands of lines about Beatrice, a woman he saw perhaps a handful of times, but about Gemma, his real wife, mother of his children, sharer of ruin and exile, complete, deafening silence. Boccaccio said their marriage was unhappy, and Dante never saw his wife after exile. Modern scholars are skeptical. Perhaps unhappy, perhaps parallel lives, perhaps more complex. What is known, they had several children: sons Giovanni, Pietro, Jacopo, daughter Antonia. Late medieval documents mention a nun named Beatrice in Ravenna's Santa Stefano convent. Most scholars believe this is Antonia, taking her father's muse's name at vows. A daughter calling herself her father's dream. That says something about what kind of father Dante appeared in his children's eyes. While the poet wrote verses and entered marriage, Florentine politics shifted. In 1282, the priorate was created, an acting body representing major guilds. Florence slowly but surely moved from feudal aristocracy to financial commercial elite rule. A quiet revolution, no barricades or manifestos, yet as radical as any. Dante stayed out of politics in the 80s, but fought. Cavalry service was expensive, horse, armor, skill required, granting social prestige unavailable through birth or money alone. In 1289, he fought at Campaldino, a key Tuscan battle. Florentine Guelph army clashed with Ghibellines of Arezzo. Decisive cavalry charge led by Corso Donati, Black Guelph leader, defying orders. Victory won against discipline. Dante saw it with his own eyes. Months later, he joined the siege of Caprona near Pisa. Military experience brief but vivid, later echoing in the comedy with precise images and real encounters from battle.
Among comrades in arms and literary circles were far richer men, like Guido Cavalcanti, from one of Florence's mightiest families. Dante was accepted as equal, not for money or lineage, but talent. Already proto-Renaissance thinking long before the Renaissance. Human worth by ability, not birth.
Dante lived this idea. Courts and noble houses received him as peer because what he did, no one else could. In 1295, doors to high politics opened. Florentine nobility long resented ordinances barring magnates from offices. In July, armed demonstrations demanded repeal. Merchants fielded city militia. Sides faced off ready for clash but hesitated. Tense negotiations yielded compromise. Knights still barred from priorate, but anyone could qualify by joining a guild without practicing the trade. Elegant, form preserved, substance changed. Vote passed overwhelmingly. Dante backed the compromise and spoke for it. This episode defines his politics, moderate by temperament and conviction, wanting neither mob rule nor aristocratic tyranny. He believed in law and institution supremacy. That made him serious and vulnerable. When politics turns rule the sturdy game, principle becomes hindrance. The unprincipled win tactically, principled sometimes historically. Dante lost the first, won the second, though not in his lifetime.
The 1295 compromise had personal meaning. Now he could hold elective office. He joined the guild of physicians, apothecaries, and merchants. Odd for a poet, but broad enough. Some see hidden sense. Perhaps Dante traded books or manuscripts. Membership opened doors anyway. From November 1295 to April 1296, he served on the captain of the People's Special Council, spoke in assemblies, backed moderate proposals. Modest but stable mid-level political career. Now the linguistic breakthrough most overlook. De Vulgari Eloquentia, a treatise on the vernacular, one of his most underrated works. Written in Latin, paradox for a book on Italian's dignity, but aimed at scholars who read only Latin. Dante traces language history and calls for a unified literary Italian from common elements of regional dialects. Exile travel shocked him at dialect differences, even within one city. In Bologna, quarters barely understood each other. Observation forced thought. Italy without common tongue, not nation, but set of neighboring foreigners. By modern parallel, Dante did what 19th century creators of national literary languages did. Pushkin for Russian, Shevchenko for Ukrainian, Schiller and Goethe for German, but in the 13th century, almost alone, without state support. Today's standard Italian taught in schools is largely the Tuscan dialect advanced and legitimized by Dante. Italian unification in 1861 happened partly under his linguistic banner. What he conceived in 13th century wanderings became political reality 5 centuries after death.
1300, all this lay ahead. Politics suddenly crashed into his life, doubled. By late 90s, power concentrated in white Guelph hands. Black Guelphs, Donati clan and allies, pushed aside, thirsted for revenge, found powerful patron in Pope Boniface VIII, whose bankers tied closely to Donati. Paradoxical, Christ's vicar backing a political clan in city infighting. But Boniface was politician as much as priest, ruthless. Dante hated him openly in letters and comedy, placing him in hell alive as future sinner. In May 1300, street clashes erupted between factions. In crisis, Dante elected prior, one of 6 Florence rulers, peak of political career and beginning of end. History loves such coincidences. Greatest success often coincides with greatest peril. June 23, 1300, Feast of John the Baptist, Florence's patron. Magnates attacked guild leaders mid-procession in Main Square, daylight holiday. Provocation expecting reaction. Priors responded harshly. Exile leaders of both factions, white and black, symmetric to show impartiality. Whites complied. Blacks under Corso Donati threatened armed revolt. Threat neutralized. Blacks left city. Days later, whites recalled. Among exiled whites, Guido Cavalcanti, Dante's best friend, returned ill, likely malaria from marshy exile spots, soon died. Dante later admitted regretting his role. Friend perished partly from decisions he helped make. Despite neutrality efforts, seen as white partisan, reputation he could not shed, ultimately destroyed him.
November 1301. Everything collapsed. Charles of Valois army, brother of French king, entered Florence at Black Guelph invitation. Corso Donati returned triumphant. Blacks plundered white property, including Dante's. Government forced out. New regime prosecuted former priors. January 1302. Dante convicted in absentia of embezzlement and corruption. Absent, likely in Rome as envoy, sentence escalated to perpetual exile and full confiscation. Later harsher, burning alive if returned. Man who wrote so poetically of hell's eternal fire, sentenced to real-world fiery death. Wife Gemma and children stayed in Florence under Donati kin protection. Bitter irony, poet's family saved by blood tie to political foes. Florentine assets seized. He never returned. Florence shut before him forever, door slammed by those seizing the house. First exile years, military attempts, political illusions. Dante among over 600 white Guelph exiles, names, connections, property, overnight beggars, dependent on others' hospitality. But one difference, he had what others lacked, words, and began using them. Whites allied with Ghibellines, yesterday's enemies, for common goal, retake Florence. Hatred of shared foe stronger than principle. Medieval politics, not ideology, survival and power struggle, where alliances shifted faster than ink dried.
Summer 1302, army in Arno Valley, then retreated to Forlì. Forceful returns failed repeatedly. Military adventure slowly hopeless. September 1303, French troops captured Pope Boniface at Anagni, the Anagni outrage, one of papacy's most humiliating episodes. Dante's chief foe, indirectly responsible for exile, prisoner, died October, some say from humiliation and shock. Dante reacted in Purgatory with lines of Christ crucified anew through insult to vicar. Hatred for Boniface did not mean hatred for church institution. He hated the man abusing sacred office for gain, distinction principled for him. Early 1304, new Pope Benedict XI tried reconciliation, sent Cardinal Niccolo da Prato to Florence. Dante wrote him on White's behalf, true patriots fighting city freedom, beautiful rhetoric. Florentines greeted Cardinal enthusiastically, public reconciliation spectacle, embraces, solemn speeches, theater. Blacks sabotaged from within. Cardinal left excommunicating the city. Exile seized moment, attacked Florence with 1,600 cavalry, 9,000 infantry. Assault failed, garrison held, effort vain. By chronicler Leonardo Bruni, this defeat broke Dante. He broke with whites, shared exile, fought beside, hoped home with, called them vicious mad company, and left. Required courage, not battlefield heroism, but accepting solitude, no party protection, no collective shield. Alone against all, empty purse.
Verona took him under Della Scala family, Ghibelline rulers. Dante visited earlier, perhaps diplomatically, 1303, now returned not envoy, but fugitive. Medieval courts not mere residences, political organisms. Each guest carried function. Dante brought reputation, intellect, word. In exchange, board and roof. Unequal or fair. Exile reshaped worldview completely. Dante, voting Florentine councils for compromise and moderation, Guelph by conviction, transformed in wanderings, saw Italy's fragmentation not abstract problem, but daily living catastrophe. Dozen cities, each warring neighbor, pulling blanket. Papacy pursued politics over spiritual. He victim of system. Personal pain, tall knowledge turned moderate centrism into radical imperial idealism. Bold, near heretical conclusion for the era. Only force uniting Italy, empire. Not papacy mired politics, not city communes tearing each other. Empire above local interests, power direct from God, accountable to no earthly lord, including Pope. Ideological turn final in De Monarchia. Dante formulated near-revolutionary. Pope and emperor both receive power direct from God, equal rank, each supreme in sphere, Pope spiritual, emperor temporal. Church cannot subjugate state, state cannot dictate church in faith. Direct polemic against papal world domination claims. No surprise, De Monarchia later on papal index of forbidden books. But Dante wrote not abstract theorizing, saw papal politics ruined life, sought systemic answer to systemic ill.
Now the comedy itself, Inferno composed 1306-1309, Purgatory and Paradise roughly 6 years each. Whole finished shortly before death, 1321, 15 years' work, during which author's circumstances, politics, hopes, disillusionments changed. All lives in text, shifting tone, sympathies, verdicts. Structure familiar. 3 parts, 100 cantos, 33 each main part plus 1 introductory.
9 hell circles, 9 purgatory terraces, 9 paradise spheres. 3 and multiples permeate, Holy Trinity as universe architecture. But behind mathematical precision hides what brief summary misses. Poems saturated Florentine politics, personal scores, encoded biography. Not mere religious philosophical afterlife poem. Political pamphlet, memoir, historical document, theological treatise, all in one terza rima text. Journey starts spring 1300, Dante 35, biblical life's half at 70. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark. Inferno's opening, most famous in world literature. Dark wood, spiritual crisis metaphor, lostness, realizing path strayed. For Dante, concrete, political defeat, exile, loss of all built. But written as spiritual experience, turning personal tragedy universal image for any person, any era. Guide through hell and purgatory, Virgil. Choice deliberate. Virgil, Roman poet, Aeneid singer, empire celebrant, embodies highest human reason. But reason limited, describes evil, explains suffering, cannot lead to God. At purgatory top, Virgil stops. Pagan, virtuous, cannot enter where only grace leads. Beatrice leads to paradise.
Ever pondered how audacious theological gesture? Medieval theology knew clear heavenly mediators, saints, angels, Virgin Mary. Dante invented own, young Florentine woman dead at 24, banker's wife. No special holiness alive, no miracles, no church recognition, only his love object, sufficient for paradise guiding star role, revolution in religious poetics, dressed in tradition. First hell circle, limbo, Dante invents. No torment, eternal longing, home virtuous non-Christians, Virgil, Homer, Horace, Ovid, Lucan, Caesar, Cicero, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Note, Dante places whole ancient intellectual pantheon his generation just rediscovering. Not condemnation, sad acknowledgement. Great, but no chance. Limbo, elegant theological solution. Neither hell nor heaven. Painless, joyless existence. Second circle, lust. Cleopatra, Helen, Achilles, Paris. Most touching Inferno scene, Francesca da Rimini. Italian noblewoman married Giovanni Malatesta, loved his brother Paolo. Husband caught, killed both around 1283. Dante meets, weeps compassion, not horror, pity, does not condemn, sympathizes, though medieval morality demanded condemnation. Scene inspired dozens plays, operas, paintings. Tchaikovsky's symphonic fantasy Francesca da Rimini. Rodin, The Kiss, originally these two. Dante gave story life outlasting the Middle Ages, Renaissance, all eras.
Sixth circle, heretics. Farinata degli Uberti, Florentine Ghibelline leader. Tense political dialogue. 2 Florentines, both exiles, one living, one dead. Both love city equally, differently. Dante places Ghibelline's heretics per papal view, distances publicly. Beside Farinata, father, late friend, Guido. Signaled break, whites. Among heretics, Emperor Frederick II, though Dante praised him treatises. Political maneuvers encoded metaphysics, written hoping amnesty, cautiously building public image. Purgatory later, hope's return faded, no pretending. Imperial sympathies open. Manfred of Sicily, Frederick's son, logically hell-bound Inferno, in purgatory handsome, noble. No contradiction, inconsistency, honest evolution of views in text, no cuts. Purgatory Dante meets brother old foe, Corso Ferresi, Donati, old friendship. Speaks warmly, Corso dead, killed political foes October 1308, siege home, died fleeing. Dante cannot not send hell, does glancingly, then tenderly brother meeting. Personal political never fully separate, too alive for abstractions. Purgatory Dante rails Italy politics fiercely, some cantos political manifesto, not religious poetry. Addresses Italy directly, slave, sorrow vessel, ship no helmsman in great storm. For Virgil nurtured poet, seeing fragmented torn peninsula special pain, not personal exile offense, civilizational tragedy. Pain made political thought diagnosis relevant today. New real history figure, Henry of Luxembourg. May 1308, German King Albert Habsburg murdered. Princes-elect. Henry Luxembourg Count wins, unknown beyond Germany. Dante initially pays little attention. Another German monarch in different Italy. Many such. None became imperial savior Dante sought life. Then change.
July 1309, Pope Clement V recognizes election. Rumors Henry intends Italy imperial crown. Spring 1310 sends embassies Italian cities peace unity declarations. Dante ignited. Wrote Con Grande della Scala, Manifesto Italian Lords Reconciliation under imperial protection. Not mere journalism, cry man finally seeing horizon dreamed years. Detail, Dante wrote private person, no office, army, money, just poet, reputation, pen. Voice loud enough heard lords cardinals. By 1310, Inferno parts circulated manuscripts, built reputation far beyond Florence. Word worked, even author penniless wanderer. Late 1310, Henry crossed the Alps. January 1311, Milan crowned King of Italy. Guelph Ghibelline lords pay formal homage. Seemed Dante dream of united Italy under imperial rule real. But Lombardy went wrong. Cities rebelled. Henry suppressed increasing cruelty. Umpire became conqueror, not just image Dante drew in treatises. Dante hurried events, characteristic haste. March 1311, open letter Florentine government, surrender emperor, cease resistance, recognize supreme power. 2 weeks, Henry, ignore Lombard rebels, strike Florence direct. Near mad military advice, ignore rear threat, main target. But Dante thought not strategist, man needing betraying city punishment. Personal grudge political philosophy mixed inseparably in letters.
Henry south methodical. Dante likely sweet Genoa Pisa. May 1312 Rome. Half city under Naples King Robert Anjou, ally, openly anti-empire. Pope Clement French King pressure withheld support. Dante later harsh letter Robert, King Jester better preaching governing. Imperial coronation in San Giovanni in Laterano, not traditional St. Peter's. Cardinals replaced Pope. Henry crowned, no triumph. Marched Florence. Siege force insufficient. Retreated. August 1313, Naples campaign fell ill, died. 40, no life victory. Dante lost all hoped. Last home return chance via imperial victory crumbled. Paradoxical, complete political collapse moment he continued purgatory, growing creative power. As personal catastrophe unlocked reserves unavailable in calm times. Artist-politician fed one source, pain. While hurt, wrote, not spite enemies, despite all. Learning Pope Clement's death April 1314, Dante letter Italian cardinals, elect Italian pope. Election deadlock. Dead pope nephew armed force expelled Italian cardinals conclave. French Cardinal Jacques Duez elected John XXII, Avignon. Avignon papacy captivity, papal seat 70 years French city under French king's control. For Dante, final act civilizational tragedy he observed through life. Response, Paradise Lions Apostle Peter, first pope, church founder, condemning Avignon successors. Peter says earthly place empty, seized turning graveyard, blood-stench cloaca. Written sitting pope author's life, full consequence awareness. By Dine Dante lost fear, or fear lost former power. All taken, threats meaningless.
May 1315, Florence offered exiles amnesty, special terms, return, pay fine, public repentance prostrate San Giovanni baptistry. Dante replied, Florentine friend, tone calm, almost mocking, but behind calm rock firmness. Roughly, can poet-scholar reputation return criminal confessing non-existent guilt? If no other way, prefers exile. Not pose, hard-won decision. Some things worth more return. Dignity one, truth another. Return price self-lie, too high. Dante chose honorable exile over shameful return. Pride, yes, but understanding, name belonged not only him. Text cannot allow author admitting unjust sentence. After military defeat Montecatini, Florence new death sentence Dante. Sons, father, children burned alive. Family verdict, Florence destroyed not poet, lineage. Around 1316-1317, Dante Verona, Con Grande della Scala, North Italy famous Ghibelline lord. Paradise text, unprecedented honors. Distant ancestor Cacciaguida meets Dante Mars heaven. Long prophecy Con Grande's future greatness. 1300 journey date, Con Grande 9-year-old boy. Prophecy comic. Normal medieval literary flattery game. All understood, no pretense. Paradoxical, man great book justice retribution, engaged court flattery roof head. Real world Dante lived, not abstraction. Poet without patron 13th century, homeless, penniless. Flattery not humiliation. Professional tool, understood, accepted both sides. Dante knew, used without betraying convictions. April 1318, John the 22nd excommunicated Cap Grande, religious services banned city. Dante over 50, health failing, unbearable atmosphere. Man creating God's eternal love text, lived city officially cut from church sacraments. Uncomfortable existentially. Around 1318, Dante moved Ravenna. Ruler Guido Novello da Polenta, poetry admirer. Irony, Guido's nephew, Francesca da Rimini, hell, second circle. Nephew woman Dante pitied so warmly, accepts poet. Politically, Guido Guelph, but Dante ceased attaching importance. Guido offered stability, sufficient. Ravenna late recognition like, letters admirers, Italy, young poets sought meetings. 1319, Bologna poet Giovanni del Virgilio, long epistle, switch Latin, official academic recognition, perhaps Bologna laurel. Dante 2 Italian eclogues reply, polite, firm refusal. Not change language program, even laurel. Italian not concession, uneducated. Italian future. He knew, others unsure. Ravenna finally reunited family. 18 years separation. 1302 left wife, small children. Lived same city, he wandered strangers' homes. Last year's family near. Elder surviving son Pietro, church positions family support. Both sons first comedy commentators. New father's texts better anyone. Paradise last part, Dante ascends heavenly spheres, past stars, empyrean. Blessed white rose center God. Human language fails poet, honestly admits. Like one saw dream, waking, remembers feeling, no features. Poem's honest moment, author says, I was there, saw, but words fail. Not talent lack, experience exceeds language. Before God, final path, Dante allows personal dream. Return Florence, laurel poet crowned, same baptistery, San Giovanni baptized. Close circle, enter victor, expelled, defeated. New unrealistic, wrote anyway. Dream not forecast, testament desire, what never stopped hurting. Dream unfulfilled. August 1321, Dante Venice diplomatic mission. Talk successful, return fell ill. Night September 1314, 1321, died, 56. Last diplomatic mission done, last poetic too. Buried Ravenna, San Francesco Basilica. Fame grew fast. Florence several times requested body return. Ravenna refused. 1519, Pope Leo X ordered transfer Florence. Ravenna monks secretly walled bones monastery. Hid 300 years. Found 1865 restoration. Italy United State existed few years. Comedy won spiritual foundations, unity built. Dante returned homeland idea before ashes.
1829, Florence, Santa Croce Basilica, built sumptuous tomb. Marble, sculptures, solemn inscriptions. Empty. Dante stayed Ravenna. City accepted when native rejected. Justice, special kind. Found rest where found life rest. Final thought. 1302, sentence real people, real political motives. They victors. Confiscated property, expelled city, sentenced burning. One short term. Black Guelphs ruled Florence decades, then vanished. As whites, Ghibellines, Anjou Naples, Della Scala, medieval Florence political entity. All crumbled. Divine Comedy did not. Exists hundreds languages, thousands editions, millions readers. Borges called best book man wrote. Eliot, unattainable European poetry peak. Joyce built Ulysses, partly structural principle. Hollywood films, Hell Circles references. Gaming industry, Dante video games. Main lesson Dante history. Power exiling him, thought destroying man. Created conditions, man created eternal. 1302 catastrophe necessary. Without, no comedy. Middling Florentine politician career. Several good sonnets. Decent life. Forgotten grave. Instead, 7 centuries immortality. Broken, he wrote Eternity a book. Exiled city, he mapped city of world culture forever. Sentenced fire, he became unquenchable fire. Dante Alighieri died September 1321, Ravenna, but Dante nowhere died.